All right, y'all. So, like I said, this will be 2.4, and this is the algebra of functions. I'll hang on 1 second, letting people in real quick. All righty. All righty. So, what you're talking about this is operations such as adding functions, subtracting functions, multiplying functions, and dividing functions. So, given f of x and g of x, there's 4 operations we'll look at. First, if we see something like f plus g of x, this is shorthand for adding 2 functions, and this means to take our f of x and add to our g of x. Now, here's the thing. When you're adding 2 functions, I always start out by putting the functions in parentheses. So when we add the 2 functions, we're going to drop the parentheses. So drop the parentheses and then add like terms. That's all we can do when we're adding. Drop those parentheses, add like terms. Once we've added like terms, we're done. All right, y'all, next we got subtraction. F minus g of x. Well, that means we'll have our f of x minus our g of x. Now remember, subtraction's a little different than adding. So when we drop the parentheses on subtraction, we're going to drop the parentheses. But we must distribute the subtraction through the second parentheses. Okay. Then, once I've distributed that subtraction through the second parentheses, then add like terms. So same thing as add. And once I've got rid of my parentheses, all I can do is add my like terms and be done. All right, next operation is multiplication. F times g of x. Now, they could just put fg of x and not put the multiplication dot. Remember, if 2 letters are next to each other, it also represents multiplication. But y'all, this will just be f of x times g of x. Okay, so all we can do is multiply our 2 functions. We will distribute, or you might have to FOIL when you're multiplying. Okay. Now, the thing you got to remember about multiplying when you're multiplying your variables, if I multiply x's times x's, we add the exponents. Okay. All right, then what's our last operation? Division. So that'll be F divided by G of X. All right, y'all, let me let one in real quick. All righty, so division, that'll be our F of X divided by G of X. Now, the only stipulation, if I was looking at a domain, would be that this G of X on bottom of this fraction, remember, G of X cannot equal 0. Okay, if that equals 0, that makes that undefined. Okay, so 4 operations we're going to look at, and this is what that support for 2.4 was looking at the other night, getting you back into shape when you add like terms and when we're multiplying and stuff, okay? Hey, also, these examples, they're going to give us 2 functions, and then we're going to add them, subtract them, multiply them, or divide them, depending on what they want. So for number 1, we're given f of x equals x squared plus 1. G of x is going to equal x minus 2. They want me to find f plus g of x. So they want me to find the sum of these 2 functions. So I'll always start out my f plus g.
Uh-oh. I think he lost service.
His computer booted him up. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, I'm back. I don't know why my computer's doing that every night. The school was supposed to fix that, and apparently they didn't get that fixed yet. So let me pull my camera back up. All right, y'all, I think I'm back. So let me get my screen share back on. All right, are y'all able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Making sure. All right, y'all. So we was about to add two fractions. So f plus g of x will be my f plus my g function. So f, I'll put in my x squared plus 1. G of x was x minus 2. So basically, all we're going to do is work the right side, okay? So remember, since we're adding and there's no negatives in front of these parentheses, we can drop the parentheses and keep everything inside the same sign when it comes out. So that this x minus 2 stays a positive x and a negative 2, okay?
Yeah.
Now, at this point, like we said, all we can do after we drop parentheses was add like terms. And y'all, the only like terms we have here are the numbers. So you want to get used to putting stuff in what we call descending order. So you want to start with the highest exponent, which is the x squared. Next, we would bring down the x. Then we would see what we get when we add that 1 and that negative 2 and put it at the end. So y'all, 1 added to a negative 2 gives us a
-1.
negative 1. There you go. And that's all I can do to that. So we move on. So adding's not too bad. All right, y'all, let's see what we got here. This one says given f of x equals x squared minus 4 g of x equals x minus 2. They want me to find f times g of x. So they want us to multiply this. So here we go. We bring over our f times g of x. That'll equal our f equation times our g. So f, remember, if I put parentheses right next to each other, that implies multiplication, okay?
Yeah.
All right, so let's put in the x squared minus 4. And then over here, x minus 2. And y'all, we practiced doing this the other night in support. When I got 2 things times 2 things, we're going to do what y'all know as FOIL this.
Yeah.
So the first question would be, I'm going to take this x squared times that x. What do y'all get?
X cubed.
X cubed. Good job. Now remember, we said add the exponents when you multiply up here, but this second x, if it don't have an exponent, you got to treat it like a 1.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, then that x squared, I multiply by the negative 2. So I get a negative 2 x squared.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, now we're going to distribute the negative 4. So negative 4 times x, negative 4x. And the thing you got to watch out is keep up with these signs as you're multiplying everybody.
Yeah.
So this last one will be the negative 4 times the negative 2. And that'll be what, a positive?
That's 8.
Now, here's the thing, y'all. Can you go further on that?
Mm. Mhm.
What y'all think? What do y'all have any like terms?
Did you do the 2x squared and the 4x or no?
Nope. And what's stopping me on that is that x don't have an exponent like this one.
Correct. Mhm.
So
Oh,
if they
so I
don't
guess
match up perfectly, we're going to leave that answer just like that.
Correct.
Oh, so let me see what y'all do here. Here's a good one. Given f of x equals x squared minus 4, g of x equals x minus 3. Y'all, I want to find g times g of an x. So let's see, we got g times g of x. It'll equal my first function times my second function. But y'all, they want g times g of x. What are you putting in these two parentheses then? What are you putting in the first parentheses?
would you put the x minus 3?
I'm going to put an x minus 3. Well, knowing that, what are you putting in the second parentheses?
Would you not
X
put
minus
x
3.
minus 3?
There you go. Y'all, they're throwing you a curveball by even giving you this f of x on this one. We didn't even use the f of x because all they wanted was g times g, and that's the x minus 3 times the x minus 3. So just be careful what they're asking for on these, okay? Just because they give you something don't mean you're going to use it. All right, y'all, here we go. Foiling. X times x gives us the x squared. X times negative 3 is a negative 3x. Then you got a negative 3 times the x. Oh, that's going to give you another negative 3x. And then finally, I got this negative 3 times a negative 3. That's what a positive
9.
9. There you go. All righty. We can go further on this one, y'all, because look here. And do not cancel those. That's the biggest mistake I get. But y'all, both of these are negative, so you cannot cancel it. It's basically just going to double it, okay?
Yeah.
So I get my x squared minus 3 and 3 is what? Minus a 6x
Plus 9.
plus 9. Okay? So the biggest thing on multiplying is just keeping up with signs. Am I multiplying a positive times a positive or a positive times a negative, okay? And down here, I even had negatives times negatives. So watch out for them signs on them.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do something different to these this time. So let me let one in real quick. So I'm going to throw a few numbers in here this time. So on this one, let's see. F of x is going to equal a negative 8x plus 11. Okay. G of x is going to equal x squared plus 18. They want us to find f of 7 plus g of 7. Now, they could have said right here, since they're putting the same number in both of these, technically, they could have said find f plus g of 7. So they'll use that lingo later on. So what they want us to do, f of 7 plus g of 7. That's going to equal my f function plus my g function. But y'all, here's the thing. I'm not putting negative 8x plus 11 here. I'm putting negative 8 times what? What are they wanting me to put in for that x on this f equals
7.
a 7? Good job. And then we'll have our plus 11. So y'all, let me get my chat on the side going, because some of y'all are answering and I'm not seeing it. Okay, so good job, 7 there. And then here's an x squared plus 18. What, it told me to put a 7 in for that one. So that'll be 7 squared plus 18. Now, I'm not going to lie. You can punch this right here. It looks just like that. You can punch it on the calculator and get your answer. But I'm going to play with these and use a little bit of order of operations. So here you've got something being multiplied and being added. So you're going to multiply first. And negative 8 times 7 gives me a negative 56.
56.
Plus my 11. Over here, you got to do the exponent before you can add. So I got a 7 squared.
49.
So 49. And then bring down my plus 18. All right. Now notice, all I got left in this one is adding. All I got left in that parentheses is adding. So I can now add and drop my parentheses because I'm going to be down to a single number. So what's that? Negative 56 plus 11.
You get
Oh,
you
that's
45.
Okay. And then over here, a 49 plus 18. So let's see, that's what?
67.
67.
There you go. So if you watch out, you see they're still playing with us on adding unlike signs, or you're adding two positives. Once again, I've got unlike signs. So that'll be a positive something. 67 minus 45. That's 22.
22.
22. There you go. Now, y'all notice the difference. Well, ago, when they gave us just X's, I couldn't do no simplifying. But if they give me numbers here, I can get that down to a single answer for these, okay? So
How did we get to 22 again?
we said negative 45 plus 67.
Yep.
So basically, when you got unlike signs, you're just taking the numbers, subtract the smaller of the two numbers from the larger, and give the answer the sign of the larger number. So say if this was a negative 67 and 45, I would still subtract them like this to get to 22. But if my 67 was the one negative, then my answer would be negative because it was the larger number. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. Let's see what, a little bit of subtracting on this one. So this one, f of x, is going to equal negative 13x plus 14. G of x is going to equal x squared plus 7. We're going to find f of 10 minus g of 10. So once again, they could have said f minus g of 10 on this one since they're both putting in a 10. But we're going to be a little more careful on subtraction. But it's not as bad when you got numbers versus, say, just variables. So, y'all, we got f of 10 minus g of 10. That's going to equal my f minus my g. But remember, we're not putting in a negative 13x plus 14 here, are we? We're putting a negative 13 times 10 plus our 14. Which means the g equation will be 10 squared plus 7. So y'all, once again, I can work inside my parentheses. And my last step is going to be this subtraction, okay?
Okay.
So here I want you to multiply before you can add. So what do we got? Negative 13 times 10.
Negative 130.
And then add our 14. Okay, over here I got a 10 squared, so I got to multiply that before I can add. So 10 times 10.
100.
100.
Plus our 7. All right, so only thing I can do here is add that one. So I can now drop the parentheses. So what are y'all getting on that? A negative 130 plus a positive 14.
Negative 116.
There you go, negative 116. And that'll be minus, well, over here we just
107.
have what, 100 plus 7.
Yeah.
That'll be what, a 107.
7. Mm-hmm.
Now, y'all, be careful on this, because you got a negative and you're subtracting a negative. When you got something like this, it's like you're adding two negatives together. Like you would do on your banks, right? You draw a 16 out, and then you draw another 107 out. Altogether, I'm now going to be a negative what?
223.
Negative 223. There you go. And I think that's one of the big places where you got to get good at is on your adding and subtracting with these signs, okay? And that's usually where you get the biggest mistakes in math. All righty, y'all. So here we go. F of x is equal to negative 20x plus 18. G of x is going to be x squared plus 10. We're going to find f of 2 times g of 2. So once again, they could have said f times g of 2 since they both got the same number going in. All right, y'all. So f of 2 times g of 2 will equal my f times my g. So now I'm putting in parentheses right next together. So for f, they want me to put a 2 in for the x.
Yeah.
Negative 20 times a 2 plus 18. And also a 2 into g. So I get a 2 squared plus 10.
Mm-hmm.
There y'all. So I'm still going to have a few steps after the first one. So the first one, multiply before you add. The second one, do the exponent before you add.
Yeah.
Negative 40.
So I got a negative 40 plus 18.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the right side,
4 plus 10.
4.
Oh, this is going to give me a sort of big number, it looks like. So add these, and once we bring them two numbers out, then we're going to multiply them again, okay? So I'll probably keep my numbers in parentheses to represent the actual step of multiplying.
Okay.
So that negative 40 and 18 is what, a negative something.
Negative
20.
22.
Negative 22. And then how about, we got a 4 plus 10.
14.
14.
All right, y'all. So now, I'm going to get a big number here, but I do know the sign of that number is going to be negative.
Negative. Yeah.
All right, y'all. So what's that? 22 times 14?
308.
308. Good job. Okay, so I want you to notice on this whole page, all we done was throw numbers in for everything, and each one of those gave me a single answer. All right, so I think I got one more with numbers, and then they'll go back into doing the variables at us. So for this one, my f of x is going to be a negative 5x plus 9. My g of x is going to equal x squared plus 16. So what do they want me to find? They want me to find f of negative 4 divided by g of negative 4. And that's another one of those, they could have said f divided by g of negative 4, okay? So it looks like we got a little division going on. So f of negative 4 divided by g of negative 4. And when I got division, I always make mine look like a fraction there, okay? So on top, and then I'll divide that by what I get on the bottom. So on top, we're going to have a negative 5 times negative 4, because that's what they want me to put in for
Yeah.
that x. And then I'll add 9 to that. Now here's where you got to be careful. I'm about to square a negative number. So that negative 4 needs its own set of parentheses when you square it. And then add 16.
Okay.
Now, by hand, if I was doing it by hand, I wouldn't need these parentheses on top and bottom, because it's understood on fractions that the tops are like they're in parentheses and the bottom. But if you punch this on the calculator, y'all, you better include these extra parentheses if you don't make it look like a fraction, okay? All righty, so let's see. On top, I'm going to multiply first. So negative 5 times negative 4 is going to give me a 20 plus my 9. Now, here's where you got to watch out. If you don't put this negative 4 in parentheses when you square it on a calculator, it'll give you the wrong answer. So, y'all, what is a negative 4 squared?
16.
And it is a positive 16. Good job. And then I'll bring down my 16 at the end. But y'all, what happens on this one? Let me show you the big mistake people do to that when they use that calculator. Whoops, I ain't got my calculator pulled up yet. Let me get it pulled up real quick. I guess it shut down a while ago when my computer did. All righty, so let me share the calculator. So say I went on the calculator and I did negative 4 and I squared it. Look what it's going to give me. It gives you a negative 16. Well, negative 16 ain't what a negative 4 squared is. So if you don't put the negative in parentheses, the calculator will not square the negative and give you the wrong answer. But now notice when I do put that negative 4 in parentheses when I square it, it's now going to do negative 4 times negative 4 and give us a positive 16, okay? So be careful on the calculators. All right, y'all, so let's see now. I can add my numbers on top. 20 plus 9, give me a 29. 16 plus 16 is what, 32?
Mhm.
And y'all, that does not reduce. 29 over 32 does not reduce. So that would be my final answer. All right, y'all. So any questions on those with the numbers in them?
Not really.
No.
Yeah, they're not bad. It's just,
No.
um,
It's just like a step-by-step process.
And that's all it is. Doing a lot of order of operations on them is basically like you're saying, okay? So now let's see what they're going to do. So now we're going to let f of x equal negative 2x plus 3. G of x is going to equal x squared plus 2. They want me to find f plus g of x. So really nothing bad here. We're just going to add two functions together. They don't give me a number to put in this time. So remember, since we don't have a number, all we're going to be able to do to this is add like terms when we get there, okay? All right, so here we go. F plus g of x will equal my f plus my g. F is a negative 2x plus 3. G is a x squared plus 2. Now, y'all remember, this one's being added, so we can drop the parentheses and bring everything out the way they look inside the parentheses. So that'll be a negative 2x plus 3. This will come out as a positive x squared, and then plus my 2. Now, remember, I'm at the point where all I can do is add like terms, but I'm going to put this in descending order. Now, the only like terms we're going to have is our 3 and our 2. So to put them in descending order, I need the highest exponent, which is that x squared. Next will be the x, because remember, it's got an exponent of 1 here, so that would go next. So then we got our negative 2x. And then, y'all, let's see, my like terms are what, a 3 plus 2.
Yeah, plus 5.
And that'll give us that 5.
Yeah.
Okay, so they didn't give me a number, so I can't go no further. We're done.
Mm-hmm.
I never did mind this kind of stuff. It wasn't bad to me. I liked sort of playing with these. But
Yep.
a little bit better than graphing, maybe.
Yeah.
All right, so now watch this one. This one, they want me to find f minus g of x when f of x equals 9x minus 5 and our g of x equals 3x minus 8. So we know f minus g of x is going to equal our f minus our g. So f was what? 9x minus 5. G, 3x minus 8. So I guess to test y'all, I'm about to ask y'all what's coming out of these parentheses.
Are you asking
Not-
us now?
Okay, I couldn't hear what y'all just said.
Do the 9x and the 3x.
Oh, well, we're just going to drop the parentheses first and get our 4 terms out of them. So bring out this 9x minus 5. But what's next? Because y'all got subtraction here,
Minus-
remember?
Minus 3x minus 8.
Oh, you're so close.
Plus
Oh.
8.
Because remember, you got a negative times a negative. And
Was
then
you doing
Plus.
and it's going to be a plus. There you go. So I want y'all to notice up here, if you follow adding, they came out the same sign. But if you follow subtraction, that positive turns negative and a negative turns positive, okay?
Mhm.
Now, y'all got a bunch of like terms. X's add together and the numbers add together. So start with my X's. A 9x and a negative 3x.
6x.
And then my numbers, a negative 5 and a positive 8.
Plus 3.
And guess what? Be done with it, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So to me, between adding and subtracting, subtraction is a little trickier because you got to distribute it, okay? So I'm even going to turn a twist on this one and see what y'all do. F of x on this one is a negative 4x plus 5. G of x is going to equal x squared minus 5. And we're going to find g minus f of x. So we know g minus f of x will equal my first function minus my second function. But what I'm interested in is what are y'all putting in this first parentheses?
Would it be the
Good minus 5.
x squared?
Minus my 5. Because this is g minus f, which is my x squared minus 5, minus f, which is negative 4x plus 5. So now y'all get to redeem yourself because y'all sort of made me get y'all to this one. So y'all, what's coming out of these parentheses for my next line?
The numbers.
So for
X
the x
squared.
squared minus, you're just bringing that right out, right?
Yeah, you're gonna bring the numbers down.
All right. Well, at this point, you're just really trying to get rid of them parentheses. So these ones we didn't have no issue with, but this one you're going to have to distribute that negative again. So a negative times a negative 4 makes that a positive 4x.
X.
And then that negative times that
Negative
positive
5.
5. There you go. So once again, your only like terms are the numbers. So if you put them in descending order, the x squared will go first. Then the positive 4x. And then look at that, a negative 5 plus a negative 5.
Negative 10.
Negative 10. All right, so it looks like this one's going back into going to give me a number on this one. So a couple more of these, and then we'll get into doing a few domain questions, okay? So on this one, f of x is going to equal x squared minus 11. G of x is going to equal 9 minus x. They want us to find f minus g of 8. So remember a while ago they said find f of 8 minus g of 8. Now they're going into this lingo showing you that f minus g of 8 is the same thing that we did a while ago when they gave us numbers, okay? So f minus g of 8 will equal our f equation minus our g equation. So we're going to put in an 8 and square that. So I'm gonna have a 8 squared minus 11. And then over here, I'm gonna have a 9 minus 8. Okay, so this is basically shorthand letting us know that we're putting the 8 into everybody's x's, okay?
Yeah.
All right, y'all, so order of operations, hit that exponent first. So y'all got an 8 times 8 sitting there. And that's 64 minus our 11. And y'all, there's only one thing to do over here, and that's subtract. So 9 minus 8 looks like a 1. All right, so I'm about to drop parentheses because I'm now getting this down to one number. So 64 minus 11. What's that?
53.
53
Mhm.
minus our 1 over there for a final answer of
52.
52. There you go. All right, y'all. So I'm about to turn it up on you again. Let me get that camera back up there. All righty. So let's see what y'all think about this one. F of x
Mhm.
is going to equal x squared minus 3. G of x is going to equal 12 minus x.
Okay.
But they want me to find f times g of a little n. So y'all, let me bring this over here. F times g of a little n is going to equal my f times my g. But the question of the day is, what would I actually put into this first parentheses? Because you're not putting in an x squared minus 3 here. What do y'all think?
Would it be the xn
Oh, who
squared?
just said that?
Me? Well,
It'll be
Victoria.
an n, so you're going to do an n squared minus 3. Good job.
Mhm.
Which means this will be 12 minus n. Now look, you still got variables in here, but it ain't an x variable they want you to put in here. It's a n variable, okay? All right, 2 things times 2 things. So we get FOIL again. So I'm going to start with my n squared and multiply that n squared times 12. So I'm going to get a 12n squared. How about this? An n squared times a negative n. That's a negative something. So what y'all get with an n squared times an n?
Wouldn't it be a
And to the third power.
negative n?
Negative n to the third. Good job. So treat that n like it had a 1 again. All right, now I'm on my numbers. Negative 3 times 12 is a negative.
36.
Negative 6.
And then that negative 3 times that negative n is a positive.
No. 3n.
Positive
3n.
3n.
Now, y'all, here's the thing. This one has to be in what we call descending order. So the n3 has to go first, and it's negative, so bring that negative with it. When you rearrange the order, they got to have the same sign, okay? So now this will be a positive 12n squared.
Negative 12 and square.
Uh-huh. And then after the 3n, it'll be my what? Minus 36. And notice, N3 cannot add to an N2. They cannot add to an N. And none of those can add to a
36.
number, okay? All righty, y'all. Looks like they got one more doing numbers, and then we get to play with some domain. So f of x is x squared minus 2. G of x is a 14 minus x. They want us to find f divided by g of a 3. And really, the reason I really think they're doing numbers again in the way they got it set up is because while ago when you did this problem, they did f of 3 divided by g of 3. Now they're wanting y'all to see this new lingo, f divided by g of 3 means the same thing as that did, okay? We're putting a 3 into everybody's x's. So that'll equal my f divided by my g. So remember, f is not going to be x squared minus 2. It's going to be
3.
3. There you go. So 3 squared minus 2. And then that'll be what? A 14 minus my 3. Hey, also on top, exponent first. So 3 times 3 would be a 9 minus 2. And then only one thing to do on the bottom is just subtract that 14 minus 3. Gives me 11. And y'all, all I got to do now is finish my top and be done. So 9 minus 2 gives me a 7 over my 11. Actually, we used to have stores called this back in the day.
They still got them in Texas.
Oh, do they really? Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yes, they have a whole bunch of them in Dallas. I was so excited to go in one.
Oh, wow. You used to get the big Slurpees and stuff.
Right.
All right, now, so y'all, that's the end of doing them kind of exercises. So now they're going to go back and play a little bit more on the domain stuff we did the other day. And let's see, there's like one. So there's 2 problems doing domain at the very end of this. So for this first one, and y'all remember the domain stuff the other day, we was doing stuff like x, such that x is a real number.
Yeah.
Or we had stuff like x is a real number, and x couldn't equal 5 and stuff like that, okay?
Mhm.
So what they want us to do for the pair of functions, determine the domain of the sum difference and product of the 2 functions. Now, for this one, your f of x is going to equal x squared. Your g of x is going to equal 9x minus 9. Okay, so they want us to find a domain of the sum of these 2 functions, the difference, and the product. So I'm going to start with the sum. The sum of these 2 products will be f plus g of x. Right? We're adding these two functions. So I'll have my first function, which is x squared, plus my second function, which is 9x minus 9. So the question of the day. What is the domain if I was going to add these two functions? Better yet, remember the other day when we did domain, what was the only thing I was looking for in those functions?
The X.
Oh, I couldn't quite hear you.
I think she said the X.
Well,
think.
Why?
but y'all remember the other day when y'all did 2.3? And I gave y'all stuff like f of x equal 2x plus 3. And y'all said, oh, that was all real numbers. But then I gave y'all fractions. Remember the fractions? The fractions were the ones where I took the bottom of the fraction and I set it equal to 0. So, do y'all see a fraction here? I don't see no fractions. I see a number being squared. I see a number being multiplied, but there's no fractions here. Remember the other day I said, hey, when you're doing functions for the domain, if you don't have any fractions, then the domain automatically will be x such that x is a real number. And I don't care if you're adding two functions. Neither one of these has a fraction in it. So there's no way I'm going to get anything called undefined, okay?
Right.
So the difference, y'all, the difference will be f minus g of x. It'll be my f equation, x squared, minus my g, which is 9x minus 9. What is the domain if I was going to subtract these two functions? Well, y'all, I still don't see a certain thing here.
Well, you see,
So it's a real number.
Yeah, it's all real numbers because we have no fractions to worry about.
Mhm.
So x such that x is a real number. So notice, adding and subtracting always got the same domains. So let's look at our product. Our product will be f times g of x. So it'll equal my f, which is x squared, times my g, which is 9x minus 9. So who's got my domain for multiplication? If I was to multiply these two functions, what would my domain be?
Wouldn't it still be a real
X
number?
is a real number.
Yeah, because I still don't have any fractions on
Fractions.
that.
Mhm.
So y'all remember, at this point, when you're doing a domain, if you don't have fractions, it's got to be all real numbers, okay?
Okay.
Okay, but notice, all three of these have the same domain. So let's look at this next problem and see what kind of patterns y'all might see. All right, y'all. So here we go. Same thing. We're going to find our domain of the sum, difference, and product. Now my f of x is now going to be a 1 divided by x minus 2. G of x will equal a 6x to the third. So let's start out with our sum again. So the sum, remember that's going to be f plus g of x. So that'll equal my f, which is 1 over x minus 2, plus my g, which is 6x to the third. So the question, will this domain be all real numbers?
No.
No.
No, good job.
No.
No, because guess what? We
Fraction.
got a fraction.
Yeah.
So remember, if I got a fraction, I gotta play with that bottom and see what number might be put in for that x that'll make that equal 0. So y'all on that one, since you had a fraction, you can actually set the x minus 2 equal to 0, solve that, and that'll give me my number I'm kicking out. And to solve that, we're just going to add 2 to both sides. And I get a 2. So if I put a 2 in there, I get a 0. 1 divided by 0 is undefined, which means you can't do nothing to this. So we're going to kick out one number, and that's that 2. So you're going to have x such that x is a real number, and x cannot equal a positive 2. Okay, 2's the only number I can put into that to make that a 0, right? So that's the only number I got to kick out of my domain. All right, the difference is f minus g of x. That'll equal my f, which is 1 over x minus 2, minus my g, which is 6x to the third. So y'all, any domain guesses for the subtraction here?
Is a real number and
Would-
can't equal 2.
There you go. Same problem, right? Same fraction. And it still cannot equal a 2 there. So good job. So x such that x is a real number. And x cannot equal a positive 2. So once again, you notice adding and subtracting got the same domain. So let's look at our product, which will be f times g of x. That'll equal my f, 1 over x minus 2, times my g, which is 6x to the third. So what y'all think about that?
Same thing.
Same thing, y'all, because there's only one fraction in here, and that x still cannot equal to 2, makes it undefined. So are you noticing? Adding, subtracting, multiplying have had the same domain for both of these questions, okay? Now, the one that would have been different would have been some division, right? Division, because you would have had one of these on the bottom, and then you'd have had to play with it. But y'all, they didn't ask us for division on these ones. But this last problem will have division for us, okay? So the last problem you got to play with tonight. For f and g, determine the domain of f divided by g. All right, f of x is going to equal 7x minus 10. G of x is going to equal 10x minus 30. So basically, f divided by g of x will equal my f equation divided by my g equation. F was 7x minus 10. G is 10x minus 30. So now we got to play with our domain. Will this domain be all real numbers?
No.
No, good job, because we got a fraction and it has an x sitting down here. So you would take that 10x minus 30, set it equal to 0. Remember, by setting it equal to 0, we're forcing it to give the answers that make this thing undefined. Y'all, so here I'm going to what? Add 30. I'll get my 10x equals 30. And then divide by 10. So that gives me what, a 1x. And then 30 divided by 10 gives me a 3. So if we put a 3 in there, the top is good. It gets 21 minus 10, but we didn't care about the top. We're worried about that bottom. And that makes that a 30 minus 30, which is 0. So we cannot keep that number. So your domain will be x such that x is real number. And x cannot equal a positive 3. Okay? But y'all, if I go down the x-axis, I can put 2's in here. 20 minus 30 gives me negative 10, which is good. I can put 1, 0. I can put negative numbers in here. There's only one number I can't put in here, and that was that 3 we found, okay? All righty, y'all. So questions on those?
No.
So that's going to be your homework tonight, going through there, adding functions, subtracting functions, multiplying functions, and dividing. At the end, they're going to give you what I have 3 problems doing the domain, okay? So they're always going to keep you honest on that domain stuff. Alrighty, also, I'm going to quit the recording so I can get that sent out later.